Big Smoak.
Eric Moriss, the head coach at the University of North Texas, with us on 365 Sports. Craig and Paul, I'm David Smoak, and Coach Moriss on the phone with us. How much of your day now, Eric, and thanks for your time, is trying to come up with NIL money, or however you can say that, rather than actually trying to recruit football players?
Well, too much of it. I think the more we get into this, the further and further away from actually being a football coach I become. And so a lot more meetings. Had a lunch meeting today, actually with a bunch of donors to discuss everything, and then trying to set up a couple events this summer to bring some musicians into town, do some concerts where all the proceeds go to NIL, to our collective. And so, yeah, I mean, this thing has turned into the wild, wild west, and I think trying to keep up with the Joneses is something that is crossing my mind every night when I go to sleep. And it used to be, drawing up cool football plays at night on a little sketch pad by my bedside, and now it's trying to figure out what kind of meetings I can set up to get with some donors.
The job has certainly changed, Coach, and I'm sure you guys don't think for the better at all. To that end, if there's talk, and it's going to happen because there's a sponsor of the G5 having its own rankings system where it'll be G5 schools only, and perhaps maybe down the line a G5 only playoff. Would you, as a G5 head coach, be in favor of that?
The ranking system, I think absolutely not. I mean, I think it's already confusing. I think there's all these different polls out there, and I think it separates us further. And I think, there's now with a 12 team playoff, I mean, I think there's a real chance that we get, one, maybe even two teams in that playoff picture. And I think when you have a different poll, I think it kind of separates you, almost kind of like SDS is a separate poll. So I don't like the poll idea. Now when we're talking about maybe playoffs into those seeds, I think there's something I just don't know enough about it, and haven't put enough thought into really knowing if that's a good thing. I do know that college football is as popular as ever, and people love watching it played on TV, love watching it live. So like more football is not a bad idea to me, as long as we still get a chance to prove that we can play with the big dogs and get our way into the college football playoff somehow, some way.
Coach, you finished 5-7 in your debut season there in Denton. Had a late stretch. You won your last couple of games, but the stretch right before that kind of doomed you guys from being able to get that 6th win and get into the postseason. But you finished, strong with a couple of wins. Just encapsulating your first year there at North Texas, what did you learn about Denton and the school and just the program and kind of your surroundings, and what excites you about heading into a second season?
Super motivated, mainly by the fact that we had so many close games. And you look up, I mean, we played the 4 best teams in our league, all in consecutive weeks, and every game besides SMU was decided by a 2-minute drive. I think we had 8 games that were decided by 1 score. And so, it to show you how close we actually are to competing at a high level in this conference, was something that gives me a ton of hope. Now we got to learn how to finish. And so, you go back and you look at, losing by 3 to Navy, by 7 to UTSA, had a chance to win it against Tulane there late. Same thing with Memphis. We went on a 2-minute drive to go ahead against Memphis late in the game. So I think we're right there. Now the problem with that is close isn't good in anything but horseshoes and hand grenades, as Coach Leach used to always say.
Yeah.
And so, just knowing how close we were, I think we were able to add a bunch of good pieces in the transfer portal during the first window, and so we've been able to revamp our defense. And so, excited, love Denton, and all the surrounding areas right here. I mean, this is a great university that's growing at a rapid pace. I mean, 44,000 undergrad students right now. And so I think that this is a great time to be at this university and to kind of propel this thing to the next level.
How often do you find yourself repeating what Mike Leach said?
Way too many times. And the bad thing is, I have a couple guys that played with me at Texas Tech here in the building now that are working under me. And so we'll leave out a team meeting and they'll tell me right, they're like, gosh, you sounded just like Mike right there. And so yeah, I mean, he was my biggest mentor, learned so much from him, gave me so many different opportunities, not only as a player, but as a coach as well. And, you know, the one thing that's funny is I find myself from time to time thinking about him and pulling up my phone and pulling up his number and wanting to send him, you know, a crazy text message or something. But, you know, because I really, you know, he would be able to give a bunch of great sound bites of how college football has changed and where it's going and give you some good insight on transfer portal, NIL, all the above. You know, I'd love to have some of those conversations with him late at night, maybe after he'd had a couple of vodkas in him.
Now look, you have that on football. Do you have Mike Leach type ideas about life, like he did?
I'm not near as witty as Mike on my feet. You know, you could sit in a room with him and ask him about some topics, and he you know, start coughing and give you all the and then come up with, you know, some of the funniest answers that were newsworthy, and the media loved them, and they could kind of run with them. But as far as, you know, fat little girlfriends, all the way to his wedding goodbye, to the mascot challenges, I mean, I'm not near smart enough to pull up all that stuff, all that wittiness in one conversation.
Coach, you are not even 40 years old yet, still young by coaching standards, but you've been around the game for a very long time. You've learned a lot. How much are you still learning? How much of that goes on in the offseason when you go out to look or see what other programs are doing or try to figure out new ways to do things? Where do you find yourself looking this past offseason, for example?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think always having a growth mindset is something that's valuable in any profession that you choose, and always wanting to find ways to get better. So, you know, luckily my coaching tree is really large, and, you know, to be able to call Lincoln Riley and be able to call Sonny Dykes and be able to, you know, bounce ideas off Dana Holgerson and all these people that I was kind of, that I was molded by and groomed by has been awesome for me. So just finding new ways to practice, to figure out, you know, how people are raising money now. You know, this NIL deal worked for us. We did this event. We're able to raise this amount of money. And so I think always being able to find new ways and better ways to do things is something that's key in life. And so, yeah, I'm very lucky to have a support system around me that I can learn and grow from each and every year.
You know, we've had G.J. Kenny and Jeff Traylor on from the state, and obviously from what is considered G5. But and they've talked about people trying to raid their roster, and also they're trying to find other people. Eric, have you ever thought, or have you, and you don't have to tell me if there is true, but have you ever had to pick up the phone and call another head coach and say, get off my lawn when it comes to them tampering?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a new way for them to do business. And I think too, like, I think there's some beauty, and I learned this in Incarnate Word, is there's a bunch of people that aren't taking Texas high school kids right now. And I think this is, we have a great administration here. I mean, Jared Mosley is phenomenal to work for. And so just him understanding kind of my thought process and building a roster here, is continuing to take. I mean, we took 26 high school kids. I mean, a lot more than any other program in the state of Texas. Next closest, I think, was 18. Then it dropped off rapidly after that. And so I think, you know, if people are patient and you can build this thing the right way, you know, the problem with that and with where people would argue with me is that, you know, I'm going to recruit them, I'm going to develop them, and then it's going to be hard to retain them once they But I do think once you have relationships with kids, I mean, I did this with Cam Ward, and Cam Ward turned down a bunch of money from the University of Ole Miss to come with me to Washington State. So I think there is a personal level to it too. And I think as this thing kind of settles out in the next 2 to 3 years on you know, the way we're paying players, the way different people are getting the collective, whether it's revenue share or whatever happens, I think hopefully by that time we'll have some stuff in place here as an institution, as the NCAA, where we can, you know, have a fighting chance to retain some of these players and build a championship caliber team.
You just mentioned Cam Ward. He's now at Miami. What is Mario Cristobal getting there?
What is it given, or what is he getting?
What is he getting?
That's a better question.
Yeah, that's a better question.
I know both of those answers. I'm only going to talk about one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I stud with a lot of different with game reps. I think game reps are so important. Like, we've got a couple of Division II transfers that were All-Americans here in this last portal class, and they've been phenomenal for us so far. And so I think people that have played a lot of football, I mean, for 4 straight years, he's been a starting quarterback from FCS level all the way to the Power 5 level. And I think he's seen all the different defenses. I think he's matured a lot as far as his leadership qualities. And so I think it's a young man that's ready to step into a star caliber player for the University of Miami and somewhere. I don't think he'll be enamored with the U. I don't think he's going to be nervous by having to take over a program like that. I mean, he's a guy I think that has ice in his veins, loves to compete, and will go out there and prove himself.
Coaches, we're kind of going over some big picture things with you as well. Paul mentioned Washington State there because of Cam Ward. You obviously had your time there. What do you think when you see a program like that's kind of on the outside looking in, so to speak, right now in the college football world? They're fans, obviously, the fans of Oregon State, fans of schools that may be in that situation are all, feeling a type of way about things. But knowing that program as closely as you do, what do you think when you think of them being on the outside, so to speak?
I hate it for them, and two, just, now that TV's kind of taken over everything, obviously they're in a small TV market, but I think, college football kind of made that town, and it was fun to see a town like that that's so small come alive on Friday night of home games and everybody pour in from the west side of the state and have so much pride. And I think they took pride in the fact they were off the beaten trail. They're surrounded by a bunch of farmland, but they were still able to play, these big time opponents and travel down to USC and UCLA and all these teams. So I hate it for them. I think it ruins, a bunch of history that's been built up in college football, and everybody remembers those Wazoo teams and the great quarterbacks that they've had for year after year. And so I hate it for them. There's a bunch of good people there, and for them to have to, be forced almost down a level is going to be tough. But I think all this stuff will come back full circle at some point, and I think as it all evens out, I think that they're going to be in a great place to win a bunch of conference championships, whether that's in the Mountain West or some other conference. I think they'll be able to compete at a high level in the G5 rank for a long, long time.
All right, so Chandler Moriss has been around, very talented. Baylor knows all about him because he shredded them a couple of years ago. Your thoughts about what he brings to the table?
Yeah, just so much experience. A kid I think that's been a winner at every level. Obviously growing up in a football family with his dad as a coach, I think his football IQ is extremely, extremely high. Just had some bad fortunes the last couple of years. Earned the job at TCU 2 straight years, and injuries has caused the seasons to be cut short. But a kid that's hungry, I think, that really wants to go out and prove that he's a guy that can win championships. He did it at obviously the high school level, and then has been able to perform well enough to win jobs at marquee school like TCU. And so, yeah, I think he's a football guy, a football junkie. That's a super competitive guy that knows how to move the football down the field and score touchdowns.
What was spring football like for you guys competitively? What were you aiming to get out of it? And Coach, is spring football harder than ever before because of all of the exterior issues and not knowing, like, hey, the kid I'm coaching right now, who I'm banking on hopefully being a contributor, might not be here in 2 weeks when we wrap up our spring game? Has that changed along with so many other things, the I guess, importance in the way you're able to coach during spring football?
Yeah, I think it was so good for us this year, just for the fact that we were able to kind of flip our roster and we added so many pieces to it. And so I think it's invaluable to get those reps. We probably tackled a little bit more, did a little bit more live situations just to see how these guys would handle some in-game situations. And I think the competition was at an all-time high. I think, a year ago we kind of knew a bunch of who our starters were going to be. And I think this spring, I think that we were able to have guys go out there and prove it and earn it each and every day. And so, So was really happy with where it was, and then obviously, didn't really have many surprises in the second portal. And so I think, last year we did have some surprises that we lost some guys late, and we invested some time and reps into kids. But this year I think it was a lot more, it was better on all those fronts as far as us getting kids in here and getting them valuable reps and being able to retain them and hopefully going into the summer continue to get them some more reps before we get into fall camp and ready to compete in September.
I know you're wanting to get home, and you're probably sitting in the driveway, so we'll let you go after this one. But the open offense that opens up the door for the great slot receivers in Texas Tech has cranked them out. You're a part of that. Wes Welker. There's a lot of names. What makes, in your opinion, an elite or productive slot receiver?
I think toughness, number one. I mean, I think if you look at, the lineage of Welker and Amendola, and then we've had a number of them since then, but they were not the fastest, but they were super tough. They were willing to go over the middle, had great savviness of understanding, how defenses work and how to sit in zone coverage, how to win versus man. And so I think overall football IQ is something we give a little bit of leadway on those guys as far as being able to be some fill players at times and run option routes and different things of that nature. And so I think toughness and high football IQ are two things that I would really look for and continue to look for as far as having a guy that really understands how to play the slot receiver position in this offense.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate your time as always. Eric Moriss, North Texas head football coach, with us on 365 Sports. That's given us a pretty damn good dose of some G5 head coaches and where they are, Jeff Traylor, GJ, and now Eric Moriss.
Still would love to know the piece of information you wouldn't share with us. Just want to know what the...
Well, I imagine it's 7 figures.
Yeah.
I think that's probably fair. Maybe not. I don't want to pretend like and do like some do and just throw out these wild-ass projections. But, yeah, I would think Cam Ward, that's probably a fair ballpark.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that when they he went down there because they got pictures of him, but he ate at Joe's Stone Crab with Rick Ross.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, they're rolling out the big hitters. Yeah, I mean, that's a great gift for Miami, and he did a great job with Cam Ward. Obviously, didn't have him last year because he was at North Texas, but that was a funny little line. And off air, we'll have to talk to Eric sometime and get more of the stories. But they got beat up by the transfer portal. They lost Jamori Macklin, who's a great receiver. He's going to Kentucky now. Ayo Adeyi, their really good running back, is off to James Madison. Chandler Rogers, their quarterback last year, also off in the transfer portal to to Cal. So, I mean, they lost some of their heavy hitters, but, getting a Chandler Morris in there, that at least helps answer the quarterback question because you lost both Rogers and Stone Earl, who transferred out as well. So, Morris looks like the guy. You got some others that you brought through the transfer portal. They were very active, but they certainly are one of those teams that it's just going to be every year. You got to watch, your best players, and they certainly got picked apart a little bit, but it seems like they recovered nicely, and they were knocking on the door of a bowl game with 2 wins at the very end, just fell one shy, but there were a lot of close games, as he pointed out. So it's going to be a different looking team just with all the guys that I mentioned that are no longer on there, but I mean, there's things to like about what they've been able to bring in. So, that's going to be a curious team. And, he's one of those, even though he's been around for a long time, like one of those up-and-coming younger coaches, not under the 40 under 40 type list of a guy, So, very curious to see how he continues to guide that program and what they're able to do this year. Maybe make a bowl game. I think that'd be a big deal.
Pretty good to have a couple of the